The next speaker is Paul Whitehead, with taking the power back and putting the common unity back in community. The guerrilla gardener, rebel with a cause. Please welcome Paul Whitehead.
Basically, I'll give you an introduction to who I am and what I do, because not all of you may know. I run a little business in Blackpool called Pedalable Edibles. It's basically me on a bike with a trailer, and I go into people's backyards and gardens. I create a growing space, I condition all the soil, I propagate all the non-GMO seeds, plant it out for them, take care of all the plants, right away from them. Basically designed for people who just have the time, the knowledge, or patience, because you need a lot to do it. And one of the things that I'm trying to do at the moment is inspire people into a localisation of food production. Because one of the problems we've got is, by centralisation. All the corporations like Monsanto coming through. I've actually seen this morning an article in The Independent from yesterday saying that the EU have now relaxed the laws and GMO crops could be planted in the UK as early as next year. So this is where now we really need to pull our finger out and coming together as communities and rising up against this stuff. Now this isn't really a presentation, I'm not presenting anything new to you. It's more, I guess, of a call to arms, I guess a rallying of the troops. Because I think, we come here every week and we're all very friendly, we're all very smiley. We, open our minds to a lot of new information. But I don't really see many people going out there in the physical world trying to positively engage and change things, because this is what we really need. And one of the good the examples of that is the fracking issues. I mean, a few of us from here have been down to Barton Moss, and I obviously know that people have got, jobs and kids and things like that. But we have to start prioritising our lives and thinking what's most important, because you're not going to have a job or a family if your water and your soil and all your air quality is destroyed. We have to get this into our heads from the get-go. And I guess the only way we can defeat the corporatocracy, which is what is destroying the world, is through a united community. We're facing fracking, austerity, geoengineering, fluoride in the children's milk in schools is something that absolutely baffled my head when I saw it in the Gazette, Blackpool Gazette. I thought, how can they even be contemplating that? I've actually got a document downloaded from a website that states that it needs to be disposed of in a toxic waste place. So it's kind of like, how can you even be contemplating putting that in there? There's a larger agenda to that. I mean, I think Alex will probably drift into that at some point in this talk, because I know he really does know a lot about that side of it, with the old Nazis and the gulags putting stuff in the water back then. But yeah, we just have to basically change our incentives, because at the moment we're getting out of bed and we're going to do our jobs in a fictional economic model that basically rules our lives. We have to change the incentives to a basic sort of thing in human life, where it's respect and love for all things on this planet, basically. I think money is probably the worst invention that we've ever had. It really does ruin everything. I mean, I've been involved in, say, about 3 or 4 community projects for 3 years since I moved here. And they're all environment projects, but they're all relying on money. So we've got willing volunteers, like me, quite a lot of the people are elderly people, but these projects will not go ahead if there is no funding. Now that's ridiculous to me. People willing to go and do some good in their own communities, but they can't do it because there's no money. And of course, the first thing that gets cut in the austerity is the environment, which is insane, because when you think about it, how can any of us do anything without a healthy environment? So we have to really, look at this and start thinking, prioritising things. Again, I guess Rob's just touched on it. Politics is not the answer, clearly. Many people have been debating in the past months who to vote for in the elections, and I just, I'm of the school where I think it's absolutely pointless. There's no point in choosing your own master. We have to now again localise everything, start taking back our own individual sovereignty, but at the same time recognising that we are part of a human family. So we're not UK, we don't need to be, thinking in nation states. Think as a global human family. There's no reason why we can't do this. It's taking the power back, so we just have to start deciding for ourselves what we do. It's like I was in the Gazette about 3 weeks ago, near where I live, just near South Shore. There was a little sort of semicircle of soil that the council used to plant wildflowers in. Since the cuts came in, they've neglected it, so it was just sat there doing nothing. So it's actually near Notriani's ice cream parlour, if anyone knows where that is. So I just took it upon myself, because I live around the corner, to go and plant some lettuce and some kale in there. And the guy next door in the shop just came along and says, oh, I know someone in the Gazette who might actually feature this. So I got in there about doing the guerrilla gardening, and that's kind of where I'm coming at it from. It's me on my own, and I was able to, get there, and people were looking at me and recognising me and saying, oh, thanks a lot for doing that. Ironically, the trailer that I use for the plants was stolen that very night. So I don't know whether it was someone that saw what I was doing that day and went round the backs, noticed I put it in my backyard, and it went. Luckily, I managed to speak to the reporter. She got that into the article, which again, I got some really nice messages on the website and people contacting the Gazette saying, oh, we feel really sorry for him because he's done a good deed for the community. Can we buy him another trailer? And I was like, well, this is nice. There actually really are some nice people around. I didn't accept it because I was working, and I thought, well, it's only £65, I can pay for it myself, but I appreciated the sentiment, and it made me feel like if more of us do this sort of thing, then there are people that can come together and help. My dream is to have armies of guerrilla gardeners going around and identifying all these wastelands that the councils neglect. I mean, thousands of people. What could the authorities do? You're going out there and doing a good deed for that community. There is nothing they could do. All you got to do is knock on the doors of where people are living and say, hey, you know that bit of crap at the bottom of your garden there? Do you mind if we come around and clear it up and plant some fruit and veg that anyone can take? Who is in the right mind is going to oppose that? This is what I think we need to be doing. It doesn't have to be just that either. Going knocking on people's doors and asking if they need anything doing. People on my allotment, I've got an allotment on Cherry Tree, and I talk to the older people, and they tell me how it used to be, where everyone used to pull together during the 2 World Wars, and were facing hardships, and everyone would pull together. I don't see that now. I see people now, it's just every man for himself. And that, since, I guess, the end of World War II, we saw the creation of the United Nations and the EU, which is, again, more centralisation. Now, that's how they've done it. They've tricked us into thinking that more centralisation will solve all our problems, but it's disconnected us as a community. And that's why we have to just start recognising this, bypassing politics, ignore what all this stuff says in the media, and just go out there and do stuff. I'm actually going to put at the bottom there is a little list, and it's going to be pedalable edibles, community spirit, missions of goodwill. I want people from this group to put the name down and contact, whether it be a phone or an email, and I'll get in touch. And we'll start networking, we'll start workshopping things we can do, going out there. If it starts off being the guerrilla gardening, great. I'm quite happy to do that. But I don't want it to just be that. It can be anything. Making crafts, giving stuff away. Bypassing the monetary system is something me and Rob are doing at the moment. Because he's a builder and I'm a gardener. He wants to grow food in his back garden and I need some building work doing. So he came down, had a look and says, yeah, I'll do this for you. And I says, right, well, I was going to pay him 50 quid. I says, well, hang on, if you want some work doing, I'll grow your food for you. So then we've bypassed it. So it's like that time bank system kind of thing. You know what I mean? So it's again just networking with communities and realising the skills that we all have and using them. Now I've just been to Italy. One of the projects I was volunteering for was Grow Blackpool, which is part of Groundwork, a national green charity. And a couple of years ago they went out to Italy to a nature reserve and they took some of the more younger volunteers. And it was kind of like an idea of where to kind of network sort of different countries, ways of doing things in the community, based on the environment. And this year, the idea was to kind of network disadvantaged youth inclusion in green spaces, rural and urban. So myself and the guy who used to run Grow Blackpool were invited there, and it was people from all over Europe, people from Bosnia, from Bulgaria, Spain, Portugal. And the one thing that really made me feel great was when I got there, they're all relative strangers, and within half an hour, we're all talking about our projects. We're all inviting each other to our projects, saying, oh, come and stay with me. our areas. This is the power of community, and that's on a European level. You know what I mean? If we could do this in St Anne's, Blackpool, you know, Thornton, there's no reason why we can't change things. And again, one of the major proof that the people have the power, especially with the fracking and all that's going on at the moment, is in Bentley, Australia. I don't know if anyone knows about this. People in the fracking sort of movement probably will. But there was a company called Metgasco, and they were trying to do coal seam gas mining there. And the camp that they set up started off with about 50 people. It doubled the following weekend. It doubled the following weekend. It doubled again and doubled again, until there was like 300 people there, and then it got to something like 2,000 and forced the authorities into revoking the licence. We have the numbers. It's just people are very, very reluctant, I guess, to a certain degree, to stick their neck out. There's a lot of people who maybe think they want to go down there, but because of their own jobs or this, that and the other, they don't prioritise it right. And this is where we have to start thinking what is important. And while I was in Italy, I also met a woman, a very, very inspiring woman, called Maria Rita Di Osogna, or Sonia, however you pronounce it in Italian. And she's a scientist and a physicist, and she was brought up in the area that this nature reserve was in. It's on the east coast of Italy, in a region called Abruzzo. She lives in California now, but back in 2007, a British oil company, I can't remember the name at the moment, wanted to set up some offshore drilling rigs right near where the nature reserve is. Someone she knows let her know about this, and she was like, bloody hell, I can't let that happen in my own, near where I grew up. So she got involved, and she came back to her own area, and over a 2 or 3 year period, managed to do many, many talks all over the region, and they rallied 40,000 people to protest on the streets. 40,000. Now that is amazing. I mean, I know the Italians have got this sort of, red blood, very high-powered sort of thinking and what have you, but, we can do this too. We might be a reserve nation, but we have to start thinking and pulling our fingers out. And I've actually spoke to Vanessa Vine, who's one of the major sort of anti-fracking people at the moment, and trying to work out something where we can get Maria over, because there's a lot of people in the fracking sort of way of thinking that they don't really take on board what's being said unless somebody has some letters after the name, like a scientist. I mean, we've only got mothers and grandmothers and fathers and people in the community that are standing up. We don't really have anyone. I guess Ian R. Crane has some sort of credibility because he's worked in the industry, which is great. I'm glad he's on board with us. But to actually have someone who's an actual physicist and a scientist saying that this is a ridiculous, process, is really needed, I think, in this country. So I'm hoping that we can get some sort of funding to bring her over, paying for her flights, and Rob says he'll quite happily put her up here, put her a show on here, and she can stay over at his place. And we need to do it now, because Quadrilla are coming back. I don't know whether you know this, but they've just put the planning application in with LCC for Little Plumpton, which is 5 miles down the road from Blackpool. So they're not happy with causing 2 earthquakes in 2011. They want to do it even more. And there's already, I guess, like a plan for a community protection camp that we've seen obviously down in Balcombe, we've seen in Barton Moss. There's now one just been set up in Dalyhume in the last few days, because iGas are going down there too. I think there's also one in, I think it's Crawberry Hill in Hull, so they're popping up all over. That's 60% of the UK up for fracking is coming. We've got to stop this somehow. So, yeah, it's just the people power thing. It has to happen, and we have to start, coming together. Guerrilla gardening is one way to do it. Doing good deeds just generally is going to, get people on side, I think, even if they're sitting on the fence or they're completely sort of ignorant to this process. If you go out there and knock on the door and ask them or do something good for them, they're likely to listen to you rather than you just trying to rant at them or whatever. And I think, again, you've got to put a bit back. You know, we're all, I guess we've been conditioned into always taking. And, you know, we live in a world that is not perfect, but we as people can change it. Anyone, you know, can go out there and do something. It's just basically having the balls to do it. And I've never done public speaking before. I was in a band for 3 years. I stood on stages in front of 2,000-3,000 people. You know, I had long hair spin on my head about making noises like a pig and a cow, you know, ridiculous extreme metal stuff. But, you know, this is more daunting because I'm seeing people's intimate faces and it's an important subject. And my friend Brent, who's my oldest mate here, he's been, you know, with me on this mad journey as we're all on. And he's going to come up and do something very similar. He's never done this before. And he's winging it. He's got no notes, you know what I mean? So he's got more balls than me. But I think Brent's knowledge is massive. He's the sort of guy, and I love him to death, who just disappears into his cave for about 3 months. And he comes out with this vast amount of knowledge. And you know, we just stood outside there and he's talking all this stuff and I'm just like, mate, you're unbelievable. And me and Alex have kicked him up the arse to come and give a bit of a talk. Because I'm not going to probably be a public speaker. I'm more of a doer. I like going out there and physically doing something. But Brent, you know, I think he's got the potential to be one of the best speakers I think this country has to offer. His knowledge is vast. And not to put too much pressure on you there, mate. But it's got to be done.
So anyway, that was my thought.
But yeah, I'm going to leave that piece of paper at the back. So I mean, just get in, you know, leave your contact details and I'll get in touch. And we can try and do something. I'm just going to leave you with one little quote that I came up with myself. Community spirit is the establishment's kryptonite. Thank you and good night. Aha!